So every time, whenever you're stuck in life, the blueprint that Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, and maybe the real message of the Bhagavad Gita was.
What if the Bhagavad Gita, the so-called divine instruction manual of Hinduism, was never meant to be followed at all? For those unfamiliar, the Gita is a sacred Hindu text where God, in the form of Krishna, gives spiritual and philosophical guidance to a warrior named Arjuna, right before a massive war. Most people read it as a sermon. But what if the real message wasn't in Krishna's answers, but in Arjuna's questions? In this video, we flip the entire Gita on its head. No devotion, no dogma, just a raw, unscripted dive into what the Gita might actually be teaching us. And it's not what you think. So, most people read the Gita like it's telling them how to live. Follow your duty. Control your desires. Be detached. But what if that's not really the point? What if it's not about how to live, but how to reach the kind of clarity from which right living naturally emerges?
Okay, so let me be very precise in what the Gita is supposed to be like, right? It is a Hindu philosophical text which summarizes the divine and the basis of all spirituality which was contained in the Vedas, right? Vedas are the main text of Hinduism. It is the origin point of Hinduism, and their philosophical interpretations are the Upanishads. And the Gita is the philosophical distillation of the Upanishads in the Mahabharata story. It is when God himself, Krishna, comes down and talks to the warrior prince Arjun about how to live life, the secrets of the universe, what divine being is, and ultimately he gives all necessary information in terms of philosophical standing. What Hinduism stands for is completely described philosophically in the Bhagavad Gita text by God himself, who is Krishna. Now the point is, the basic interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita by most scholars and most peoples and proponents of Hinduism is that it is just that. It's a distillation of how to live. If Krishna asked Arjun to follow a bhakti yoga, you also follow a bhakti yoga. If he was asked to follow a karma yoga, you also follow karma yoga. And people take it in a metaphorical reading of sorts, so that Arjun's fight or war on the battlefield is now represented for us as our war and our battle in our lives, the struggles that we face, the conflicts that we face. And just like he faced a war, we face our life, and just like he did karma, that he did bhakti, he applied jnana yoga, we are supposed to apply those in the context of our life. Now this is a perfectly fine reading of the text, but I want to propose a new way of thinking about it. So my interpretation is that Krishna or God himself, even the concept of God, is represented as the perfect idealized state of being, right? Krishna is perfection, God is perfection, and God represents the superlative degree of something. For example, if you are, let's say, appearing for a test and you have to write an essay, and the scoring system is so that at maximum you can score 100 marks in that particular paper. So the Krishna or God is the representation of a perfect score. But the reality of writing an essay is that the teacher is never going to give you 100 out of 100. Perfection is not attainable, but perfection is the direction in which you move. And Arjun therefore represents us in the sense that we are supposed to behave like Arjun, not behave like Krishna, right? Arjun is the model of how you behave, and Krishna is the idealized goal we're supposed to reach. Now what we do is we take the teachings that Krishna gave Arjun and we directly apply it to our lives. I disagree with that notion. I believe the one we should completely follow is Arjun. And what does Arjun do? Arjun questions. Arjun asks the divine. Arjun has philosophical inquiries. So questioning, therefore, is the first steps towards enlightenment. Not to simply remember all the 4 or 5 paths Krishna or God has given. It doesn't matter what your religion is, right? You have been given a particular divine path, but the point is you're not supposed to just follow it. You're supposed to follow the principle or the example of Arjun. And how does he start the Bhagavad Gita? He starts by questioning God himself. So that will be the first step towards enlightenment or towards living a good life.
That was a fascinating breakdown, and your framing actually flips the traditional lens in a very provocative way. Let me reflect it back to you, stripped to its core. Most people treat the Bhagavad Gita as a divine instruction manual, where Krishna equals the teacher, and and Arjuna equals the confused student. The moral: obey Krishna, follow Dharma, and transcend. But you're offering a subversive reversal. What if Arjuna is the real hero? Not because he submits, but because he questions. And Krishna isn't a character to imitate, but a metaphysical benchmark. 100-100 on the cosmic test. Unattainable, but directional. This makes Arjuna not the weak one, but the truly human one. And the Gita becomes less about obedience, more about dialogue with the divine.
See, so when I start thinking about it more and more, I realize another thing. It's the fact that the instruction manual that Krishna gave Arjuna specifically is entirely just context dependent on where he was. It was for the war of Mahabharata. It is not supposed to be there for humanity as a whole to follow, but simply a key instruction for Arjun himself. And the meta message of the Gita wasn't to follow Krishna's bhakti path or Krishna's jnana path or Krishna's karma path or Krishna's any other path that he had given, but to see the way that Arjun was questioning, see the way Krishna came up to those answers and replicate it for your own self. For example, let's say I am a student of physics and I therefore, in order to solve certain problems, employ formulas discovered by various scientists, and that is how I'm able to calculate the force of an object by multiplying mass into acceleration. And I know this formula by heart, and that is the reason I'm able to do that. It does help me, and that is expressed in how the Gita helps everyone in their daily lives. But if you don't understand the derivation of where that came from, you can never understand the thought processes that was there in order to reach that formula. And then you're just a parroting it. And the moment that formula is not applicable to a situation, you are completely down in the dumpster. You can't think or do anything. And that is the problem with the reading or the traditional reading of the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, I can use metaphor in my daily lives in order to explain my situations through what have happened in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Any conflict becomes war. Any doubt that Arjun faced about fighting against his relatives becomes me with my inner conflict. What do you call? Krishna becomes the intelligence, Arjun becomes the mind, the four horses become the different emotions. Metaphors can be applied, but it doesn't exactly fit every single time. But when we trace back the thought process that Arjun had, that actually gives us a very fine and nice blueprint on how to approach problems. It's not about what to think, but rather how to think, right? Arjun starts the entire Bhagavad Gita by questioning the actions that he was supposed to commit. That is step one. A question the things that you're supposed to do. Second thing is, when given an answer, he did not completely accept it. He questioned it again. Re-question the answers that you were given. And thirdly, when he was finally sufficiently satisfied with the answers, but he was not completely quite there, he did not let that little 1% doubt bother him, but rather he took action and participated in the war. Once you've gotten 99% of the answer that you're looking for, you do not spend time trying to fucking bring down it to 1% and trying to solve that 1%. That is called analysis paralysis. Instead, you take action. So every time, whenever you're stuck in life, the blueprint that Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, and maybe the real message of the Bhagavad Gita was not to just completely follow what Krishna said, but rather see how he arrives with the answer and see the back and forth between Krishna and Arjun, and use yourself in put yourself into the place of Arjun in order to figure out how to go through your life. And the blueprint that I'm able to break down from the Bhagavad Gita is question everything. And once you get the first answer, question it again, do a deeper inquiry. And once you have a sufficiently good enough answer, take action. Do not sit in your analysis. That is the way Bhagavad Gita teaches you how to go through life. And that is Krishna's real message. Not to worship him, but to worship your ideal self, to follow your ideal self. You are not supposed to worship Arjun or worship Krishna. You are supposed to become Arjun and work towards your interpretation of Krishna, your divine self, your idealized self, your superego. That will be this video.
Beautiful. Then I'll take it from here. In a world where people treat scriptures like instruction manuals and worship gods like distant monarchs, today we cracked open the Bhagavad Gita not to follow, but to understand. Not to memorize, but to recreate. What started as a divine sermon revealed itself as something far more radical. A dialogue, a blueprint, a method. Arjuna wasn't weak for questioning. He was enlightened because he questioned. And Krishna's divinity wasn't in being obeyed, but in being the mirror to that process. So, if you're still looking for answers, maybe the point was never to find them. Maybe the point was to learn how to ask. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe for more unfiltered, unscripted dives like this one. And remember, patterns are